Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how you can use the elements that you've created in Adobe Illustrator of your tour infographic to turn them into an interactive piece that when you click on one of your elements, it opens up to give you some information about that topic. When I say elements, I'm referring to the buttons that you've created in Illustrator. So what we have here, I have artboards with each of the elements that I'll be using divided up onto them. These are just A4 size artboards. I know that they are that size because if you go over to the artboard tool here and have one selected, then in properties we can see that it says A4. These ones here, these are 1920 pixels by 1080. That is the standard size of a screen. So that's going to be our background image that we'll use when we create the interactive part of this task. So what might be easiest for you when creating your buttons on these artboards is opening up your Illustrator file that you have your map on or your cityscape, and then we're just going to create artboards next to it that's going to be A4 in size, just like what I have here. So to do that, you click the artboard tool, and I'll just create an example down here, and I'm going to just draw something about that size. Doesn't really matter because over in properties we're going to click where it says preset and it says custom, choose A4. We'll just move that down a little bit, press escape to get out of that, and then where all of your elements and buttons are living, it might look something like this. So you can just select an element / button, copy it, Command C, and then go back to that artboard you just created and Command V to paste it in. You might just need to move it, resize it so it fits on that artboard nice and evenly inside of it. Then you would do that same process for all the other buttons, so you've got something that looks like this. Everything on one Illustrator file for saving. For my map, I have a second one here because I'm going to use that to write the text on later on. You will see how it all works, just as a softer one that we'll be able to see elements and also text on. I'll show you how I made this background lighter than this one just quickly. So depending on what your background image looks like, there's a couple of things you could do. The way that I did mine was, I'm just going to make a copy of this to show you what I mean. So holding down Option, I'm just going to create a copy of that artboard. So in mine, I have a few extra little bits and pieces like the river, the beach here, and these extra little bits that I probably don't need to include just so it's more plain and simple and we can see text on top of it. So just with my white pointer tool, I'm going to go through and just remove those parts. And as the main thing that's standing out as a darker element to this map is the shape here. I'm just going to go up to my colors here, show options, and I'm just going to drag the color down so it's a little bit lighter. You might be able to do the same in the opacity here. So let's just bring that color back. So with that shape selected, opacity will help reduce it. But just keep in mind that there seems to be like this shape behind, which you can kind of see popping through. So it really just depends how your illustration is made to what technique you would use. So I might just pop this back up to 100 for mine and then drop down this color tint there. Your colors will likely have more sliders on there with CMYK. That's okay, just adjust the colors so that it is lighter. So then you can see here for the example that I've made, it's pretty close to what I did before. So that's great. So now that we have all of our elements on their own artboard, we're going to go through and save them as PNGs. PNGs are great because they have a transparent background, which means that we won't see any box around the element when we paste it on top of our map or landscape, depending on what you're using. You may also not have as many elements as this, and that's fine. So, to save them as PNGs, select the first one, let's start with that, then go to File, Export, Save As. I have a folder on my desktop called Tour Infographic, and I'm going to create a new folder inside this one called PNGs. And then say Create. Because I selected this one, number 1, the first artboard here, I'm going to just name this so that I know what I'm looking for later on. And then down here, this is important. You're going to go to Use Artboards and then say Range 1 because this is artboard number 1, and because we had it selected, it says 1 down here. Then say Export. Change this here, resolution to 300, making sure before you do that that this background color is on transparent. Then press OK. And then just go through, click on your next artboard, and then go to File, Export, and do the exact same thing. Name it, say Use Artboard, change the range to 2, and then say Export. Do the same for your map or your cityscape. Select it, File, Export, Export As, and give it a name. Now that all of our elements and maps have been exported, we'll be able to see it inside of that folder we saved them in, which is great. They've got transparent backgrounds and they're ready to use. So the next step is open up PowerPoint and create a new document from a blank presentation. Now just go up to File and click Page Setup. We're going to change the width and the height to 1920px by 1080px. And it will update it to centimeters automatically, but if you put the number and px at the end of it, it will be correct. Then say OK and say don't scale. Alright, we can delete these. And the first thing we're going to do is go up to Picture, Picture from File, and then finding where we saved our map, we're going to pop that in first, or your cityscape. Say Insert, and it'll be the correct size, hopefully. So now let's pop in our first element. Go up to Picture, Picture from File, and choose one of them and say Insert. Here it is. Now this might be a little bit big with the bounding box. That's the A4 size that we had before. Just right click and say Crop if you need to, so that we can bring it in just a little bit closer to where the actual drawing is. And click off it. Cool. Resize it and move it to where it should go on your map or your cityscape. Looks good. Great. So now what we want to do, we want the viewer to be able to click on this and then go to the page that talks about these mountains. So I'm just going to copy this graphic, and then over here I'm going to create a new slide, and then delete these. And because I made an extra map earlier, a lighter version, I'm just going to pop that in to begin with and then paste in the element I have, resize it so it's bigger. And then what I'm going to do is go back up to page 1, select this graphic, and then go right click link, and then choose this document, and then go slide titles and choose slide 2 and say OK. Because slide 2 is this one here. So when we are presenting and we click on this graphic here, it will open up to slide 2. Go back up to your map or your cityscape and continue to put in these elements that you've created. Remembering that you can crop it if you need to, just to make it a little bit tighter around the graphic there. And then just resizing it and putting it where it needs to go. I'm going to copy this one, go over to my side panel, and I'm going to right click on this one and say duplicate the slide, and then just remove that one and then paste it in. Then I go back up to slide 1, and on the Great Wall I'm going to right click and say link, and now I want this one to go to slide 3 and then say OK. Another great idea is to go back to your slide 2 and put in a home button so that if you click that button it takes you back up to the first slide. This button for me is going to be the flag. So I'm going to pop it in the corner. You can put it wherever you want it to go. Then I'm going to right click, link, and say when this is clicked, it goes to the first slide. Say OK. Then I'm just going to copy and then paste it onto the third slide as well. And that one, because we copied and pasted it, it should already be the link to go back up to the first slide. You can edit it should you want, but first slide is what we want for that. So just continue to pop in your elements and link them to the correct slide that they should go to. I should note as well, the reason why we crop them in is because we don't want the bounding box of it to be too big that you go to click, say, this one, but you accidentally click that one because the bounding box is a little bit larger. So that's why you would crop it if you wanted to, / needed to. So now that that's done, in theory, I should be able to click the present button down here. As I click an image, it will go to that part of the presentation. And then to go home, yeah. Great. So now it's time for your text. You should have already downloaded 2 fonts from Dafont, one decorative for your heading and one sans serif or serif for your body text. To install those, ready for PowerPoint, the best thing to do is to open up Font Book on your computer. To open up Font Book, go to the search just up in the corner and type in Font Book. Open it there. Then we want to click the little plus sign. Now I have mine saved onto my desktop inside a folder called Fonts. Note that I'm using a font that has .ttf at the end of it. .otf is also fine. I'm going to say open, and there's my font, and then I'm going to do the other one as well. Looks like this one will let me do the whole folder at once with the .ttf file, so that's great. Say open. So now I've got my body text and also my decorative for the headings. If your fonts that you've just installed don't show up in your list of fonts when you get to the next step, then you may just have to restart PowerPoint. Save your work before doing that though, you don't want to lose everything you've done, and then reopen the program with your project. Use the text box to create a text box. When you have your heading, just select it all. Then go and find the font name that you have loaded into the machine. Increase the size. Change the color if you wish. I'm going to use the eyedropper to sample a color from my map on the first slide. Say OK. And create another text box for your body text. All your information about that part of the tour. So that you don't have to choose the font and color each time, you can select your title and your body text by holding down Shift to select more than one at once, and just copy it, Command C, and paste it onto your next one. And maybe you want to move it around and change that information. Don't forget to put a title on your very front page as well with your fonts. When you're ready to save, go to File, Save As, save it in the correct place on your desktop, and then as a PowerPoint presentation, then click Save. There you go, there's some basics on how to create an interactive document for your chosen school tour infographic.